Hi guys, I hope you saw my last video where I discussed the key characteristics of a qualitative research inquiry. That was part 1 of the video, and out of the 15 key characteristics I discussed 8. I stopped at 8 because the video was becoming longer, and my students always tell me that Sam, please make short videos because otherwise we find it boring. So here is part 2 now. Welcome to Search Research with Dr. Sam, your online thesis guide and advisor. And today's video I will discuss from points or characteristics 9 to 15 which make up for the characteristics of a qualitative research inquiry. That means that if you see these are the characteristics of your research project, then qualitative research is for you. That is the way to go for you. So points 1 was they are usually inductive in nature, and I explained it using examples. Point 2 was that the qualitative research, the central problem always lies around how people interact with their world. That should be your focus. Point 3 was data collected normally through interviews and observations. Point 4 was data takes form of words and not numbers. Point 5 was that the research should contain a detailed description of research participants and the physical and social structure of the context in which your study is taking place. Point 6, that investigator is collecting data in the field most of the times. Point 7, collection of data is from different sources to achieve triangulation. Point 8, it is very rare for a researcher to introduce an intervention and study its effect. Remember, these characteristics are not exclusively for qualitative research. Some of them may overlap for quantitative as well. I do not claim this to be exclusively for qualitative, but it is increasingly used for qualitative. So now let's continue from where we left off, and today in part 2, let's start with point number 9. So point number 9 is, for qualitative researchers it is quite common to have a primary interest in identifying and understanding the social processes by which the particular end results are created. They just do not simply describe the results. So just don't report the results. Sometimes in quantitative, what do? We report the results. We report the statistical analysis, the numbers. Our numbers confirm our data and finding. All right, it could be a correlation analysis, it could be ANOVA, it could be I can't think of any more right now. So it's the numbers that confirm our findings. But in qualitative research, the researcher is not only reporting numbers. Even if he has or she has collected numbers, they are just not reporting numbers. They are trying to explain the process, why things happen the way they do. Remember, the focus should be on explaining the process, why a certain learning technique works. All right, why if people are working from 9 to 5 they are overworked, or why people like to sit at home and order food using apps. So that is done. You are trying to explain the why, how it works. All right, the results. Point number 10, although a researcher may make use of interviews, systematic formats for recording observation, and even material from response to questionnaires, in the final analysis, the researcher becomes the primary instrument for inquiry, not the data collection tools. It's the researcher, because with rare exceptions, he or she must interact directly with the study participants. I've told you this before. Determining from moment to moment how to behave, what to notice and record, how a particular line of inquiry does or does not offer promise for answering the research question at hand. And the researcher in qualitative research comes with a certain kind of beliefs and values to see how it shapes the research. I am not talking about bias here, I will address bias later. But a researcher in qualitative research, they do come with certain beliefs and values of the system and understanding of the systems and processes. But they become the main voice. They want to guide the research narrative. Point number 11. Qualitative researchers try to be very conscious of the perspective they bring to a study. This is what I was talking about. So when I say beliefs and values, doesn't mean that you only believe and value what you believe and value in and get influenced by bias. That's called bias. No, They come, what I can say is they come with a theoretical foundation or understanding of a issue. All right. So it could be a feminist theory, Marxist theories. There are so many beliefs and theories there. I can't list all, but they come with some kind of a theoretical understanding of society, and that is what they want to test out. That doesn't mean that they should have bias. No, bias has no place in research. If your research shows bias in any way, people will not believe you. They will not be interested in you. So for that reason, the researchers in qualitative research often explain their own background and particular interest in the research question as part of the research report. So they explain their own background, why they came into this research, why they want to investigate, what is their interest in this. That is what I mean with beliefs and values. So researcher bias, however, in the sense of a vested personal interest in producing a particular finding, is regarded as a different matter. Bias must be controlled, right? If the results of a study are to seem truthful, you cannot have bias. Accordingly, tactics for countering the inclination to see and hear what is desired often are central elements in qualitative research design. You must report things the way they are. Do not let your research findings be affected by bias. So when I said the researcher has their own voice, beliefs, you basically explain your own background, where you come from, why you want to see this, or maybe you saw a certain practice in your school setting or at your workplace and you want to see if similar settings are there in another context or not. That is what I meant by researchers' strong beliefs. Point number 2, irrespective of the paradigm, participants' reaction become a big threat to integrity of research. I will explain this very simply. I'll tell you why I say participants' reaction. So I mean research participants, right? Now what happens here is, because the researcher is collecting data, right? Most of the times the researcher is involved in collecting data. Now example, if you are trying to observe, if you are carrying out observation in a classroom to see how students learn, it's quite possible that the student behavior may be according to your presence there. Student behavior may not be genuine because they know that they are being watched. Similarly, if you are asking questions in an interview, maybe you are doing research at your workplace and you are asking questions in interview of employees, focus groups where other people are there in the interview as well, then their bias can creep in. Not bias I would say, but how the participants behave then create a threat to integrity. Alright, because people will then question you that if you were there, how can you say that people were behaving the way they normally do? Maybe they were very conscious, they were sensitive. So these are of course sensitive problems in qualitative research. Sometimes you cannot avoid it. You may try to limit it by, you might say that the students did not know that the observer was there, but then it becomes an ethical issue. And sometimes you just have to admit, yes, there were these issues and I admit these are the limitations. So sometimes you cannot avoid it, because then you have to create a fine balance between ethics and not revealing the truth. So then you have to accept it as a limitation and talk to your research team as to how you can limit it. Maybe ask someone else to carry out the observation techniques or interviews and focus groups, but that is very rare. Normally the researcher has to be part of that data collection process. Point number 13. Sample selection is very purposeful. Now what do I mean by that? Only rarely are samples of participants created by random procedures. So for example, if my research was about studying the effect of educational intervention, right? Educational intervention. So let's say I said that, if I introduce video lectures in my classroom, students learn better than me lecturing. All right, let's say this is my research. Lead to enhanced learning. All right. Now to do that, I can just take a random sample of students. I can engage in convenience sampling. What is convenience sampling? Well, employing all the students who are agreeing to be part of the research. All right. However, in qualitative research, we try to employ a group of people who will get me that required data. I want to see people who are actually involved in that process. So if I'm trying to study why people order food sitting at home using online apps, I must research people who actually do that, not any random population of people. and then if I find that out of 100 people 90 people don't even do that, then my research is useless. So normally the sample selection is purposeful, with some background, with some purpose in mind, not convenient and random sampling. Number 14, designs for qualitative studies are carefully thought out during a period of planning and preparation, because it is not only about just distributing surveys and seeing who responds to the surveys and distributing it to 1400 people, getting 400 responses and saying that's fantastic. You have to collect data from very specific people. In some instances, the plan must be specified in considerable detail. Detailing has to be there in the form of a written proposal. You have to previously lay it out and discuss it with your supervisors and guide. You must have it written, carefully planned out, stages of research. Alright, so nevertheless, absolute fidelity in execution of a particular design does not offer the same benefit it yields in quantitative, but it is common in qualitative research for plans to be regarded as tentative and contingent. Of course, plans will change as you go along, but in the case of experienced investigators, adjustments are regarded as part of doing good research rather than breach of protocol. So make sure you have a completely detailed written proposal, written how data will be collected. All right, from whom will be data collected, where are these research participants located, why are you collecting from them, and how will you collect, who is going to collect the data, right, how many times you will collect the data, all right, frequency of collection, everything. Make sure you lay it out. The plan should be clear before you execute it. All right, because once you start executing without thinking, and if you find, oh, this is not what I needed, or this is not getting me, it might be too late. All right, so lay out a thick plan, lay out a detailed plan, make sure you identify the biases and the threats to integrity, the ethical issues, and then start out, because you don't want to go through this process of interviewing people and then finding out, oh, this is not what I wanted, and then again invest, then that research is compromised. And my last point, qualitative research reports are normally, they are written in first language or in first person, not first language, but in first person, and they may employ expressively written language intended to make findings accessible and powerfully persuasive. So I have always said this towards the end of the video, that your research is measured, how good or bad your research is, through the impact of research. I always mention it towards the end of the video. My students make fun of me, they say you always mention that, and that's because your research should create impact, whether small or big, it doesn't matter. And that impact is sometimes created when you highlight what you have found. You may have done fantastic research, but if you do not have the ability to highlight your findings, even the smallest of the findings you must highlight, then that impact will not be felt. So qualitative research, because it is mainly worded data, textual data, graphical data, you are reporting how things work, why they work, it's not so much as numbers. You must be good in expressing yourself, in writing the language, and presenting your findings, so that the readers, the examiners, whoever is reading your report understands the purpose, the meaning of the research, the impact of the research. All right, so that comes with practice. The more you write, the better you get at it. All right, so guys, I hope you liked this video as well. This was part 2. Please watch both the videos and think about whether qualitative research is for you or not. It's an enjoyable process. If you have the skills, why not go for it? Have a discussion with your supervisors and let me know what you thought about this video. Bye.